Alright, it's 5:30, so let's learn some Portuguese. First of all, I'm going to do the usual... Oh, hello. I've got my phone here and it's it's just gone very loud, so you'll have had some feedback there for a minute, sorry. Let's do the usual, can you hear me, can you see me, all of that. Hoping so. So, welcome back, everyone. This was a lot of fun the last time that we did it, and I was really, really chuffed to see so many of you tuning in. So I decided to do it again. We'll keep the same topic because I think talking through common mistakes that people make and how we can fix them, I think is a really just helpful for all levels, because this is kind of hard to pitch, because obviously some of you have been learning for a little while and some of you are complete beginners, so hopefully I'm choosing things to talk about that are helpful no matter where you are on your Portuguese language learning journey. Also, muito bem, Derek. Okay, actually, what we're going to start with is, that gave me some inspiration. We're going to start with some really useful phrases for if you're having a conversation online, okay? So I really, really recommend you guys, anyone who's learning Portuguese or any language, to get a language learning buddy. Now, we're all stuck at home, but you can do this online. So italki.com is a very popular place. You can find tutors, but you can actually also find people who just want to do a language exchange for free. So that is one of the best ways to be working on your language, especially if you've already got a bit of a basis. I know it's scary, but it's a really, really good way of helping you start to formulate things that you want to say and practicing in a friendly environment. So with that said, I wanted to, let's see if I can get my presentation up and remember how we do all of these things. Good, I think that's working. So let's start with some phrases that will really help you if you're doing an online call, okay? So, if you say, consegues ouvir-me? Yeah, consegues ouvir-me? This is how you're going to ask somebody, can you hear me? Okay? And then somebody replied very, very well just now. They said, sim, ouço-te bem. Ouço-te bem. I can hear you well. So this one is a bit tricky because we have the word ouço, which is not very easy to pronounce, right? So now to ouço is slightly different. I can't hear you. Now to ouço. So what's going on here? We have this to is the screen flickering on your thing? I don't know why it's doing that. That's not ideal, is it? We'll carry on, and if it keeps happening, I'll have to kind of troubleshoot how to fix that. So this to is I hear you, okay? The to is you. But you'll see here in a positive sentence, it comes at the end. I hear you well. But if the sentence is negative, I can't hear you, the you has to come before the verb. Now to ouço. Okay, so this is something that people often struggle with, often get wrong. Usually the general rule is these words, he, you, me, he, she, go at the end of the verb in Portuguese, unlike in Spanish. But if the sentence is negative, it has to go before the verb, okay? So, this one also I wanted to talk about the verb conseguir, yeah? Conseguir. When I'm talking about can you hear me, I'm going to use the verb conseguir and not the verb poder, okay? Both verbs mean the same thing, but they are slightly different. So let's take a look at that. So, conseguir versus poder. Think of poder as having the possibility or being allowed to do something, okay? So, posso fumar aqui? Can I smoke here? Não. Não pode fumar aqui. No, you can't smoke here. So the reason we're using poder in this situation is because actually you physically could, if you wanted to light up a cigarette, you could do it, but you shouldn't do it. You shouldn't. You're not allowed to do it. Okay. Whereas conseguir, think about that one as managing to do something. Are you able to do it? Are you physically able to do it? Okay. So the example I've given you here is: consegues ouvir essa música? Can you hear that music? Okay, so can you see the slightly different context of when each one is used? Can you physically hear it? You either can or you can't, okay? Whereas with the previous one about being able to smoke, it's a little bit ambiguous about whether you physically can or can't, okay? Does that make sense? So the other one that you're going to be using constantly on a call like this would be I didn't hear you. Desculpe, não ouvi. So again, we have the verb ouvir that we're using to hear, which is a little bit tricky to pronounce because we have this O-U together, which makes an O. O. Desculpe, não ouvi. Não ouvi. Okay? And it's interesting that in Portuguese you don't necessarily need to have the U there. You can just say I didn't hear, which is why when you hear Portuguese people speaking in English, they might say sorry, I didn't hear, rather than I didn't hear you. So that's where that comes from, because we don't have to put it in there. Okay, anybody? Okay, yeah, so it is still flickering. Is it getting better? I'll go on for another 5 minutes, and if it becomes a real problem, tell me in the chat box. Restart the whole thing because it's not working, okay? Thank you. This is only my second time doing it, so we'll just roll with the punches, as we would usually do. Okay, so what other phrases did we have here? So this is just exactly the same, except for being able to see somebody, right? So we're going to use the verb ver. Consegues ver-me? Can you see me? Sim, vejo-te bem. Yes, I can see you well. So this in the verb ver is a tricky one to conjugate, and people often get the first person wrong, I see, because it has this strange one that is vejo. Okay, vejo, I see. So you can say sim, vejo-te bem. Yes, I can see you well. Then we have the same thing happening all over again if we say the sentence in a negative way. Não te vejo. I don't see you, or I can't see you. The te goes from the end to the beginning of the verb if the sentence is negative. Okay. Desculpe, não ouvi. I already put that in, so I've obviously put that one in twice. One that we looked at last week, which is your best friend when you're learning a language, is could you repeat that? So this one is podias repetir. Podias repetir. And this is all to note that all of these phrases are friendly and informal, okay? I've put them in the friendly, informal way because I'm assuming that you're going to be talking to a friend or somebody that you're already got a rapport with, in which case I've put them all in the informal way. So, if you wanted to say this formally, you would just drop the S. Instead of podias repetir, you would say podia repetir, and that automatically makes the sentence more polite. The next one is really helpful, where you can ask somebody to write down what they have said in the chat, okay? So if you didn't hear it, podias escrever o que disseste no chat. Podias escrever o que disseste no chat, okay? So could you write what you said in the chat. So actually when Portuguese people say the word chat, they'll say chat because you probably know that in Portuguese a CH is a sh sound, okay? But because it's a borrowed word from English, and if you are English, it's perfectly fine for you to say chat, because saying chat sounds weird if you're English. And another one to ask somebody about how you write something down would be como se escreve essa palavra? Como se escreve essa palavra? How do you write that word? So this is really helpful again when you're doing a language learning exchange, or when when you hear something. You can even do this in everyday life, right? It's really helpful for you to know how to see something written down if you weren't able to catch it in your ears. So obviously when we're language learning, we want to try and be using our ear as much as possible, because that's how babies learn, that's how children learn. But if you want to see a word written down, it will help you because you will have then the visual aid as well. So, como se escreve essa palavra? How would one write that word? All right. The next one is really helpful, and obviously technical difficulties that I'm coming up against today. This is always going to happen when you're on a call. So here are some of the ways that you can say that you've lost the signal, or it's dropped out, or that the screen isn't working, or things like that, okay? So to say, I lost the signal, fiquei sem sinal. Fiquei sem sinal. So the verb ficar has lots of different meanings, which we touched on in the last lesson. One of the meanings is to become, right? So if I say fiquei, it means I became. So the example I gave last week was fiquei nervosa. I got nervous. Here, fiquei sem sinal, I became without signal, right? I ended up without signal. So that's the way that this is expressed here in Portuguese. The other option would be to say a conexão caiu. A conexão caiu. The connection, literally the verb cair, is to fall, which is why I would always laugh whenever I was speaking to Brazilians in English, because they would say the connection fell out. But what they meant was the connection has dropped out. Okay, that's what we say in English. So a conexão caiu. Another option would be to say congelou. Congelou. It froze. So I'm always saying this to my family when I'm on Zoom now with them, like, you're frozen. So you can literally use the verb congelar to freeze and say that the screen has frozen. Congelou. I asked a friend what actually people do tend to use with this, and she said, yes, we use congelar. In TV, they actually say friso. Friso. They take the word freeze from English and make it like that, which is quite funny. Another one that you may need as well, I'm going to restart the call. Vou reiniciar a chamada. Vou reiniciar a chamada. I'm going to restart the call. So remember with this, the verb reiniciar, restart. If a word starts with an R, it's usually a R sound. Vou reiniciar a chamada. Okay, let me stop and see if there's any questions, because I think you said that podias é informal e podia é mais formal. Exatamente, Stuart. So if I go back to this one, podias repetir, that's the informal, the tu form. So the only thing I need to do to make it the formal one is podia. Take the S off. So the same with the first one, consegues ver-me. If I wanted to make this more formal, I would just take the S off again, the verb. So instead of consegues ver-me, it would be consegue ver-me, okay? When we speak in the third person singular, that's the way to be more polite. And I think next week my video is going to be on being polite, because I just published one on swear words. Nice swear words, not terrible ones. And I asked people if you wanted a video on how to be polite, and lots of people said yes. So look out for that one next week. That's probably what I am going to do. And Emmerich has just joined us as well. Hello, Emmerich. Good to have you. Okay. So the next thing that came up last week that I thought would be helpful to go over with you again was a couple of contractions. Okay. So I think somebody said something like obrigado para a aula. Okay. Whereas when we use the word obrigado, or obrigada if you're a girl, what comes next is the word por. So not para, it's por. And then when por comes up against the definite article, which is u, a, ush, and ash, which literally just means the, okay? So let's look at the top left example here. Por and u. U is the word for the if the thing is masculine, okay? So a lot of the time we're going to have to put por and u next to each other in a sentence. However, we can't have them live side by side. They have to contract and form a new word to be grammatically correct in Portuguese. So I've given you all the 4 options that might happen there. Por and u go together to make the word pelo. Por and a go together to make the word pela. Por and ush go together to make the word peluche. And por and ash go together to make the word pelas. Okay, so it's a bit tricky, so let's look at it in context and then it will make a lot more sense, okay? So the first example I used was thank you for. So email, this word is masculine. So if I say the email, it has to be o email. Then if I'm saying thank you for, it has to be obrigado por. But then I can't have o email because por and u need to be contracted. So it becomes obrigado pelo email. Yeah? Another option, if the word you're talking about is feminine, so a word like atenção is feminine. Obrigado pela sua atenção. So again, I'm saying obrigado por, and then I'm saying a sua atenção, and then they go together. Pela. Obrigado pela sua atenção. Next one. O gato entrou pela janela. So this is another use of the word por. It can mean through. So the cat entered through the window. What I'm actually saying here is o gato entrou por a janela. But por and a contract to make pela. Hope this is making sense. The last example, a Julieta está apaixonada pelo Romeo. So we talked last week about how apaixonar-se always has to be followed by the preposition por. So to be in love with in English, but estar apaixonado por in Portuguese. So in Romeo is masculine, obviously, Romeo. So we have to say a Julieta está apaixonada pelo Romeo. Okay, so I'm only going to go through 2 of these because they're very tricky, but there are, I teach 4 in my classes of these, and you will start to see these all over the place because they are some of the most common words, and it's really helpful to know that pelo and pela, they're not one word, they're 2 words smushed together. So hopefully things will make a bit more sense when you see them out and about. The other one I wanted to look at was aim, because this one isn't very intuitive at all. People always trip up on this one. How do I put aim and u together? They become the word nu. Aim and a become na. Ein and os become nos. Ein and ash become nash. So again, let's see that in context. Estou na cozinha. I am in the kitchen. So I am in, estou em. The kitchen, a cozinha. But em and a have to go together to make na. Estou na cozinha. Okay? Moro no Brasil. Countries are a really difficult one to get right because they do have a gender and you do have to say the Brazil, for example, o Brasil. So I live in Brazil. I live in, moro em, Brazil, o Brasil. Em and o, no. Moro no Brasil. So this is something that people forget all the time because some countries don't use this. For example, Portugal. Moro em Portugal. I live in Portugal because it doesn't have the that goes before it. But if you remember, Brazil always has the U. Faço compras no mercado de arroios. Again, this is em and U going together to make nu. Faço compras em. I do shopping in the arroios market. O mercado de arroios. Em and U makes nu. And the last one. Moro num apartamento em Lisboa. So I put this one in because if you want to, this you can also, the same contraction works with the word a. So I live in a apartment in Lisbon. Moro num apartamento em Lisboa. Moro em, I live in, apartamento, and em become num. Okay? So these are really, really tricky to get your head around, but I just wanted to talk you through two of the most common ones where people trip up so that you actually start to see these words in action, okay? Whenever we're doing anything to do with language learning, the first stage is just being aware of something happening and understanding why, okay? The second stage is to actually see it in action and go, oh, okay, that's why that's happening. And then the third stage is to actually be able to use it and record it yourself. So don't worry too much at this stage about getting to the stage where you will intuitively know how to do this. At the moment, it's all about the knowing that it's happening, why it's happening, and now I would say that your mission is to notice this when it's happening. So when you see the words nu and na, you can say, oh, that's actually because that's actually two words. Nu isn't a word and na isn't a word. They are two words together. It's ein and u. So I hope that makes sense. These are all things that I'm going to be covering in my online course. So if these are things that you need to know more about, I'm going to be telling you about that in a minute and giving you a chance to actually win your way into the course as well. I'll just have a quick look at the comments. É o mesmo com desculpe. So I think you're asking about being polite again, right, Stuart? You're asking about how do I make the word desculpe polite? Exactly. So in my, if I flick back to where I was, let's go. So this one, for example, desculpa, não ouvi. Sorry, I didn't hear that. Desculpa, when it ends in an A, that's informal. Desculpe, when it ends in an E, is the formal and the polite way of saying it. I don't think you need to worry too much about desculpe because, to be honest, you only ever hear the beginning part of the word anyway. You hear desculpe, right? You don't necessarily hear desculpa, desculpe, and it's a very subtle difference. But if you're writing things down or if you want to be tudo certinho, then exactly. Desculpa is the informal and desculpe is the formal. What else? The type of R is difficult to reproduce. Yeah, this is something that people say all the time, that the ch R is a really difficult one. And I put the link in here last time, and I will do that again, but I have a pronunciation guide that goes over what I think are the 7 most difficult sounds to do, and talks you through how to do those. But yeah, this h, it's kind of like as if you were saying h, but you're engaging the back of your throat as well to make a gravelly h sound. So that's definitely one that needs work. It's tough, but you will get there, so keep trying. So we'll take this as the last bit now, because I think half an hour's probably just about right for people's attention spans. And I've gone slightly over it again, haven't I? It's just because I love talking to you guys, so I'm sorry about that. I wanted to take a look at some pronunciation. So again, this is one of the things that we'll be diving deep into in this course, and it's the difference between these different sounds of E, okay? Because this is one of the things that I see people mixing up a lot, and it will do wonders for your pronunciation if you understand the difference between these 3 sounds, okay? So let's start with the open E, okay? And that sounds very much like what we would call E in English. So no, sorry, that's the closed one. The open one sounds like this. E. So when we see it with this accent, E, we know that it's this open sound. So for example, the E just with the accent means it is, right? So, él é professor. He is a teacher. But this E is used in other words as well. So for example, ela, her, bela, beautiful. So ela, bela. You can repeat it. That is the open E. Okay. We're going to skip the medium for now and look at the closed, because it's helpful to see the biggest difference, because the one in the middle is the one that people get wrong, and it's the hardest to do. So we'll go over to the closed one next. So the closed one is this. And this is the one that is used much more in European Portuguese than it is in Brazilian. The Brazilian use the open one much more, okay? So the words down below, de, bebe, come, yeah? Can you hear that really closed This is really key to the European Portuguese accent, right? I always talk about the end of words that end in E being very swallowed, whereas the Brazilians would say bebe, come, using this open E that we just heard, okay? But in European Portuguese, we don't do that. We used a closed E, de, bebe, come, okay? So now let's look at the medium one, that one in the middle that I wanted to point out because people often get this wrong and find it very hard to produce, okay? So this is when we see an E with a hat on. It doesn't, which is called a circumflex, it doesn't have to have this accent. Sometimes it will be this sound in a word without the accent, but I've used the ones with that accent now here just to be very clear, and so that when you see this now written down, you'll think, okay, that's the medium one, okay? So this is mês, três, português, yeah? So listen to the difference between all of them. U. Okay, it's really, really hard to kind of tell that difference, but listen to those 3 words again. Mês, três, português, u, e. U, e. Those are the 3 in order. So one of the words that we can use to practice the difference between those 2 is the word porque, okay? Because there are 2 different ways of saying porque, and the reason that they're different is because we have this different E sound, okay? So the first one without the accent is porque, and we would use this one in the context when there's other words coming next in the sentence. So because X, Y, and Z. porque, the closed E, e. The next one with the little hat is porque, porque, porque. And this is when we would say the word why when it's on its own. Okay? Porque, porque. So you would ask why, porque? And somebody would reply, porque, because X, Y, and Z. Okay? Porque, 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 porque. Okay? Sounds like I'm saying the word pork, but I'm not. Okay. So this just goes to show that one letter can have 3 different sounds in Portuguese, and this is often where people will trip up and won't have the correct pronunciation because you don't hear the difference between those 3. But if we break it down like this, and we have words that we can use to explain each one, then it's going to be much easier for you to then start seeing these in action and start imitating it yourself. Okay, so tell me, how was that? Was that possible to understand? Tell me in the comments if you got the difference between those different pronunciation pieces. I've gone over my time again. It's now already 4 minutes past 6, so I will stop talking. But it has been a joy to have you all with me again. Derek said the pronunciation part is very helpful. Well, I'm very excited you think so, Derek, because I know that you've already enrolled in the course. So get ready for a whole load of this. And I think that it's really, really going to help you. So yeah, I'm super happy to have had, I think, 30 of you again here today. Stuart said, "É a razão que adoro esta língua." This is the reason why Stuart loves this language, because it has this complex and beautiful pronunciation. I also think European Portuguese pronunciation is beautiful, but I remember being on a plane from London to Faro, and they do the senhoras e senhores passageiros, their voiceover thing, and somebody was like, "Why are they speaking Russian?" And people do often think that European Portuguese sounds like Russian, but even if it did, I think that that's beautiful. So okay, I find it really hard to stop talking, but I will. I'll just put the previous slide on there in case you want to check out more about the course. It's talktostudents.com/pro, and if you want to enter the competition to see if you can be the person that can win their way in, then my email address is there, liz@talktostreets, to send me 4 sentences of you introducing yourself to me in Portuguese. Alright then, everybody, I will say goodbye to you here. I hope you have a lovely rest of the day, e até a próxima. Boa noite.